My name is Jenna Collins. I am 36 years old, and this is my true story. This really happened to me, and it completely changed my life. I once trusted someone deeply, but what they did to me was so shocking, so terrifying that I'm still haunted by. Today I want you to know how betrayal can come from the people you love the most. What started as something small soon turned into a nightmare. I never imagined. If you really want to know how it all happened, then stay with me till the very end. Because my story will leave you speechless. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, this story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries. I grew up in a quiet town in Ohio where everyone knew everyone, and childhood friendships often lasted a lifetime. Mine did too, or so I believed. Her name was Emily Parker, my best friend since we were 7 years old. We were inseparable, two halves of the same soul, sharing secrets, dreams, and promises that we would always protect each other no matter what. We built forts in the woods, passed notes in class, whispered about boys at sleepovers, and even made a pact that if one of us ever got married, the other would be the maid of honor. For decades, I thought Emily was my sister in every way but blood, but the truth is I never really knew her. We drifted apart in our 20s, as people often do, college, jobs, relationships, but we reconnected years later through social media. Emily reached out to me saying she missed me, that she wanted us to be close again, and at first I was overjoyed. It felt like reclaiming a piece of my past. She invited me into her world, into her home, into her family, but slowly I began to notice things that didn't make sense, or strange questions about my husband, or too intense interest in my personal life. The way she seemed to study me, watching my every reaction like she was memorizing me. At first I brushed it off as overexcitement after so many years apart, but then subtle manipulations began. She inserted herself into my friendships, started rumors that strained my marriage, and whispered poison into ears I thought were loyal to me. I felt my life unraveling thread by thread, and no matter how much I tried to tighten the knots, the seams kept splitting. Then one night at a dinner party she insisted on hosting in my honor, I discovered something that chilled me to my core. In her bedroom, hidden inside a drawer I shouldn't have opened but did out of annoying curiosity, I found photographs, hundreds of them, of me, some from childhood, some from high school, but many recent, taken without my knowledge. Pictures of me leaving my house, shopping for groceries, sitting at my office desk through a window, and on the back of each photo were words scrawled in ink. Mine. Perfect. Soon. My hands shook as I flipped through them, the realization dawning that Emily's affection wasn't friendship, it was obsession. But before I could leave that room, before I could slip those photos back into place, I heard the creak of a floorboard behind me. I turned, my heart pounding, and there she was. Emily standing in the doorway, her smile stretched too wide, her voice low and steady as she said, "I've waited so long for you to see the truth." I froze in that moment, clutching the photographs like they were poisonous, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst through my chest. And Emily just stood there in the doorway with that strange smile, her eyes glistening in the dim light of her bedroom, as if she had finally unveiled a secret she had been longing to share. I stammered something, an excuse about being lost, about accidentally opening the wrong drawer, but she stepped closer, slow and deliberate, her voice soothing and sharp at the same time. "You don't have to hide from me, Jenna. I know you better than anyone. I always have." My throat went dry, my palms sweaty, and though I managed to leave that night with a forced smile and a hurried goodbye, the weight of those photos clung to me, seeping into my bones like ice. Over the next few weeks, Emily's behavior grew more erratic, more invasive. She would call me dozens of times a day, sometimes just breathing on the other end of the line before hanging up. My husband Mark noticed the tension in me and asked what was wrong, but when I tried to explain, he brushed it off as paranoia, convinced Emily was just excited to rekindle our friendship. But it wasn't excitement, it was something darker, something dangerous. I started noticing things missing from my home. A scarf, a book, even one of my shoes. As if she was collecting pieces of me to keep for herself. Then came the notes slipped under my door at night, typed in blocky letters on plain white paper. "I miss you. Don't ignore me. You belong with me." I reported it to the police, but with no proof and no threats. They told me there was nothing they could do. That helplessness gnawed at me, made me feel like a prisoner in my own home. One evening, as I was driving home from work, headlights appeared in my rearview mirror, following me turn after turn. My chest tightened with panic, and when I finally pulled into my driveway, the car slowed behind me, idling for a moment before driving off into the night. The next morning, parked down the street, I saw it again, the same car, the same tinted windows, and though I couldn't see inside, I knew it was her. Emily wasn't just watching me anymore. She was hunting me. My breaking point came when Mark received an anonymous email with pictures, attached photos of me taken in intimate moments. Asleep in bed, showering with the curtains slightly pulled back, bending down to tie my shoes in my own living room. The violation was unbearable, and the look on Mark's face shifted from confusion to doubt, like maybe I was somehow complicit, somehow responsible. That was when I realized Emily's plan wasn't just about obsession, it was about destruction. She wanted to tear my life apart, to take everything that was mine and make it hers. Desperate, I confided in my younger sister, hoping she would believe me, but even she looked uneasy, telling me I needed help, that maybe I was imagining things. Me. Isolation crushed me, each person I turned to slipping further away, and all the while Emily drew closer, her presence like a shadow I couldn't escape. Then one night while Mark was away on a business trip, I woke to the sound of humming, a soft melodic tune I recognized from our childhood, a lullaby Emily's mother used to sing when we had sleepovers. My blood ran cold as I crept down the hall, and there in the darkness of my living room, I saw her, Emily, sitting calmly on my couch, her hands folded neatly in her lap, humming to herself as if she belonged there. I screamed, lunged for the phone, but she was faster, grabbing my wrist, her grip iron tight as she whispered, "Stop fighting me, Jenna. We're meant to be together. We always have been." I wrenched free, stumbling back, but before I could reach the door, she said something that froze me in place. "Mark doesn't love you the way I do. That's why he won't be a problem anymore." My breath caught, my vision tunneled. Because in that moment I realized Emily wasn't just obsessed, she was planning something irreversible, something deadly, and Mark's life might already be in danger. My body trembled with terror, my mind a storm of panic and disbelief as Emily's words echoed inside me. Mark won't be a problem anymore. And though she eventually slipped out of the house that night, disappearing into the darkness like a phantom, I couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe, couldn't think of anything but Mark's safety, dialing his phone over and over until he finally picked up, groggy and confused, in his hotel room hours away, swearing he was fine, that no one had approached him, but my gut screamed otherwise, screamed that Emily's obsession had tipped into something monstrous, something lethal. The next day my fears were confirmed when Mark returned from his trip. His car's brake line had been cut, a mechanic telling him bluntly that if he had driven another mile the entire system would have failed, sending him careening to his death. My blood froze, every doubt erased, because now there was no mistaking it. Emily wasn't just tormenting me, she was actively trying to destroy my life piece by piece, and I had underestimated just how far she was willing to go. Desperate, I went to the police again, showing them the photos, the notes, telling them about the brake line, but Emily had left no fingerprints, no evidence, nothing that tied her to the crime, and they looked at me with thinly veiled impatience, telling me to consider a restraining order. Like a piece of paper would stop a woman who was clearly unraveling into madness. Mark, finally shaken, started to take me seriously, but his way of handling it was to suggest we start fresh somewhere else, far from this nightmare. And though the thought of escape tempted me, I knew Emily wouldn't stop, knew she would find me no matter how far I ran, because this wasn't just obsession, it was vengeance, and I still didn't know what sin I had committed to deserve it. Then came the night of the dinner party. We'd invited a few close friends over, desperate to feel some normalcy, to prove to ourselves that we still had control over our lives. But midway through the evening, one of our guests suddenly grew pale and collapsed, clutching her throat, gasping for breath as chaos erupted. And in the aftermath, after the ambulance had carried her away, I found an open bottle of wine with a faint chemical odor that didn't belong. Poison. My stomach lurched as I realized Emily hadn't just come for me, she was willing to harm anyone around me, anyone who stood in her way, to prove that my life was no longer mine to control after that paranoia consumed me. I double-locked every door, checked every window. Twice slept with the lights on, but still the feeling of being watched never left me. One night I caught sight of her again, standing at the edge of my yard under the streetlight, her head tilted, her expression unreadable, and when I shouted, when I ran toward her, she didn't flinch, didn't run. She just smiled, a small, chilling smile that told me she was in control, and I was already defeated. My breaking point came when I discovered something in my daughter Lily's room, a small wrapped gift box hidden beneath her bed, and inside a doll eerily similar to Lily, its hair cut to match hers, its dress identical to one I had bought just weeks ago, and pinned to its chest a note scrawled in Emily's handwriting. "She looks so much like you did at that age. I'll take care of her too." My knees buckled, my vision swam, because now I understood. Emily's revenge wasn't just about me, it was about everything I loved, everyone connected to me, and she wouldn't stop until she had taken it all. Mark finally agreed to send Lily to stay with my sister for safety, but that decision only deepened the wedge Emily had driven between us because Mark's eyes held questions he didn't. Ask questions about why this was happening, why Emily hated me enough to risk everything, and though I tried to explain, the truth was, I didn't know, not fully, and that uncertainty gnawed at me as much as the fear. Then came the night I will never forget, the night I woke to the sound of footsteps on the stairs, slow and deliberate creaking under a weight that wasn't Mark's, and as I clutched the baseball bat I kept it beside my bed, my heart slanting against my ribs, the door creaked open. And there she was, Emily, her face half hidden in the shadows. A kitchen knife glinting in her hand, her eyes wild with a mixture of rage and longing, whispering my name like a prayer, like a curse. I swung the bat, she ducked, the blade slicing through the air inches from my face, and the struggle that followed was animalistic, desperate. My screams echoing through the house as we grappled, slammed into furniture, crashed against walls, and in her fury she kept repeating the same words over and over. You left me, you left me, you left me. My mind reeled, trying to process, trying to understand, until finally, with a burst of strength, I shoved her back and bolted for the door, slamming it shut, barricading myself inside the bedroom, my chest heaving, my ears ringing with her words. That was when it hit me. This wasn't just about obsession or hatred. This was about betrayal. She had never forgiven, something buried in our childhood that had festered into a twisted vendetta. And if I didn't uncover what it was, if I didn't face it, Emily would never stop, not until one of us was dead. My hand shook as I held the door shut, my entire body trembling from the force of adrenaline. Emily's ragged breathing and whispered chants of "you left me" echoing just inches away on the other side of the wood, her knife scratching faint lines into the surface as though she was carving her way into my soul. In that moment I realized I couldn't keep running, couldn't keep living like prey in my own life. If I wanted to survive, if I wanted Lily to grow up safe, I had to face the truth of Emily's vengeance, had to finally understand what had broken her so badly that she had turned our shared childhood into fuel for murder. The police came that night, called by a neighbor who had heard my screams, but by the time they entered the house, Emily was gone again, a ghost slipping through cracks, leaving only chaos in her wake. For days afterward, I was a shell of myself, terrified, sleep-deprived, unable to focus, until one afternoon a package arrived at my doorstep without a return label. Inside was an old photograph of us as children, me and Emily at 10 years old, smiling in the summer sun, holding hands like sisters, and scrawled across the back in the same jagged handwriting was a single sentence: I never forgot what you did. My mind reeled, flipping through memories I hadn't touched in decades, until finally it hit me, a memory I had buried so deep it had almost ceased to exist. When we were 12, Emily's father had vanished, leaving her mother in debt and despair, and one night after, Emily confided in me, crying that she was scared they would lose everything I had told another girl at school, thinking it was harmless gossip. That secret spread like wildfire, kids whispering, mocking, calling Emily's family broken, and the humiliation had shattered her, turning her into an outcast. I had apologized back then, convinced myself the wound had healed, but clearly it never had. To Emily, I had betrayed her trust in the cruelest way, and she had spent 24 years turning that betrayal into a weapon. Rage, guilt, and fear tangled inside me until I could hardly breathe, but I knew this was it. I had to end it one way or another, so I set a trap. That night I wrote a letter, pretending it was a confession, apologizing, admitting my guilt in detail, and I left it taped to my front door under the porch light. Then I waited, hidden inside the darkened house, my phone recording, the bat clenched in my hands, every muscle tight with anticipation. Hours passed before she appeared, creeping out of the shadows like a wraith, her hair wild, her face pale and streaked with tears, reaching for the letter with trembling fingers. She read it aloud to herself, her voice breaking, whispering, finally, she remembers. And then as she stepped inside, I flipped on the lights, confronting her, my voice shaking but firm. It was me, Emily. I made a mistake when we were kids, and I'm sorry, but you don't get to destroy my life because of it. Her eyes blazed, the knife still in her hand, her chest rising and falling with fury. You ruined me. You left me alone in hell, she screamed, lunging forward and in. That split-second instinct took over. I swung the bat, knocking the blade from her grasp, the sound of metal clattering across the hardwood, ringing like a bell of deliverance. She collapsed, sobbing, clawing at the floor as if she could drag herself back to the weapon, but before she could, I pinned her down, my phone still recording every word as she screamed about the betrayal, the years of torment, the revenge she thought would set her free. The police arrived within minutes, this time with no doubt, left no room for disbelief, because they had the footage, the confession, the weapon. Emily was dragged from my house, kicking and sobbing, her voice echoing down the street. "You'll never be rid of me." Never, and maybe she was right. Because even after the trial, even after the sentence of 20 years in prison, her presence haunted me. A shadow in the corners of my mind, a reminder of the damage betrayal can do when it festers untreated. But as I held Lily close and looked into her wide, trusting eyes, I swore to myself that the cycle ended with me. I would teach her to value loyalty, to protect the bonds she built, to never let cruelty masquerade as carelessness, because I had learned the hard way that even the smallest betrayal can grow into a nightmare that lasts a lifetime. And though Emily's face still visits me in dreams, though her words echo when I'm alone, I remind myself of the truth. I survived, I fought back, and I will never again underestimate the darkness that can live inside someone who once called me friend. Thanks for watching and listening to my story. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries.